Right, okay, the computer decided to get up and die. Okay, so what happened? After the last video, I had exited out of the sound card diagnostics program from Creative Labs, and as soon as I did that, the computer came up with an EMM386 error. Now, generally, if you get those sort of errors, you would generally get them in Windows. It's a protected mode error, which basically means there's something seriously wrong with your computer. The most likely candidate for that sort of error is the fault here on the keyboard controller. The reason why is the keyboard controller does more than just actually control the keyboard. It controls a few, devices on the actual system itself. So the keyboard controller chip is faulty, which can happen. You're going to get weird things with protected mode Windows, especially. So it's the most likely cause of our problems is this particular chip here, the keyboard chip. Okay. So I'm going to basically show you what I've done to solve our problem, or my process. This board here is from our other 386, so we're going to basically have a chat about that first, and we're going to go through, a little history on how I actually got into PCs in the first place. But what we'll do is we will show you, what we've done in this video, and how we basically solve the problem with the hard drive. Okay, so you may notice that we got the same slots, we got the same BIOS for the VGA, same BIOS for the system. We got a keyboard BIOS, we got multiple timers. So these little clock crystals here. We have the same amount of 16-bit slots and one of our 8-bit slots at the top. We've got the VGA out, we got the PS2 out, and we got the AT out. And this is our Western Digital Paradise, which became Western Digital eventually. But this is our Paradise chip here. Basically, this computer contains 256 kilobytes of RAM on the VGA chip. So what got me into PCs originally was I basically had opened the system up, I had a look inside because I was only getting 16 colours and I wanted to get 256. So eventually I discovered that there wasn't enough RAM here, there was only 256 kilobytes. So basically there was no chance ever I could get more than the 16 colours. But I tried all sorts of stuff. And I remember books and little magazines saying, oh well, tell you what to do now is change this jumper and change that jumper and do this and do that. There's one dip switch on here, dip switch number 1, and dip switch number 1 simply tells the computer whether it has a VGA card installed or whether it's going to use the onboard one. Tried it, didn't make any difference. So this is the card that goes in to one of these slots here, probably the middle one of course, and this is the Okay, so here we have the daughter board for the SX16, and you may notice there's a blank spot over here available. That particular blank spot is for the maths code processor, which is not currently installed in this. I actually have the maths code processor in a box over yonder. I took it out of it in case I needed to use it in a different system. I took it out of this because this particular board is in storage at the moment. I didn't want to throw it away because it is the first desktop PC that I had, or I should say the family had, so I didn't really want to throw that away. I should also have, now, I've talked about this before, you ready for this? This is the actual hard drive that came with the machine. This is it. This is the hard drive, and it actually has listed on it bad sectors and bad spots, which is interesting. But it also lists out the cylinders, heads, and the sectors of the drive, which is dead handy. So it actually passed in '98. I tested it again in 2004 and it passed, and I actually tested it again well, that last video was made, what was that, 2011 or 2012? I tested it again that stage and it passed. So this is an 81 megabyte hard drive. We will actually see if this hard drive still turns on. 85 there, as you can see. That's the non-formatted, so when you format it, it's about 81 megabytes. The problem with this hard drive is that it's so small, once you install Windows on it and DOS on it, it was a fight to install other games. So if you install other games like, let's say, AutoCAD or a game itself, let's say, there was so much space and resources being taken up by it, they'd have to delete one game to play another one, and it was quite ridiculous. But there you are, the first hard drive that came with this machine. So this is the SS16 with 4 bits to be the solution to our problem. I went into the old box of bits, and basically I found this card. Now generally this card would be used on these older machines to add an extra ATA port, but if you set the jumper correctly, you can go ahead and you can have it installed as the primary hard drive. You may have noticed or remember from our first or second video on the AST, we had an option to disable or enable the onboard system hard drive controller. So basically I've disabled that in the BIOS, and because I've done that, it allows me to run this card, and this card automatically then detects the hard drive and away it goes. So that's always good. But like I said, once it detects the hard drive and it's a little bit too big, let's say the hard drive, we can use our dynamic drive overlay software, and it will overcome any, any problems this may have of not overcoming the hard drive size. But I'm trying to stick with a small enough hard drive, so I'm sticking with 850 megabytes, and we'll just see if that makes any difference. But I'm going to install it into the computer here. So basically, you can see that, yeah. So that goes on there, and the hard drive light that was basically running on the front, we plug in here. There P1 is. And that's basically it. Plug the board in, and away we go. So that should be the end of that problem. It could be to do with, as we mentioned in the very first video, the burning hard drive. Maybe it basically sent a signal back or something, I don't know. I noticed a break in one of the cables as well, actually. This one here, see? I actually marked it. It's a tiny little break, that can cause it as well. But no, it's, that cable's been running on a more modern machine for the crack, and seem to have no issue with that, Maybe the old machine's more sensitive. Poor old thing. Anyway, we'll go ahead now and we'll see if we can detect this Seagate hard drive here, and we'll go ahead. We'll see what happens. Well, might be a good idea if I plug the old power in, huh? So you may notice that the hard drive is now basically trying to format itself. Very silent drive, actually. Usually you hear the hard drive bouncing about and crackling. I hear nothing, but the hard drive light is definitely on, and the hard drive is definitely doing something. We shall know in a moment. Here's a view of the hard drive indicator light. You actually can't see it on the camera, but it's ever so slightly flickering, so it's probably in tune with the camera. But yeah, it's flickering just a little bit, and the number's still going up. So it looks like the hard drive is now formatting, but we'll hopefully you can hear that hard drive there now. Very quiet, isn't it? It's not actually making any noise. We're on 60%, but there you are. This is a Seagate hard drive, as I said already. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it has to get through all the floppy disks before we know what we are. I think this is third time's the charm. This hard drive seems to be a little bit healthier than the last one. So that's the end of it. That was the hard drive that was in it. This Seagate. I already had it marked as a few bad sectors, but now it's basically knackered. I think I half remember being able to run it alright, but it's having some major issues. So bad spots on a hard drive are a sign of impending hardware failure. Doom. So you can see here the hard drive lights is flashing, as stuff is being transferred, rather than constantly flashing or constantly on. Like I said, there's no noise off the other one. Very quiet. But yeah, this one formatted okay, and it's about to ask me for the next disc, I think now. But where it crashed on the first disc, it crashed when I tried to install that command.com file. So it could still be a fault there, but we won't know until we do this, that's why I want to do this DOS installation rather than using the dynamic drive overlay, because it'll give me a good indication whether the machine is functioning as it should be or originally intended, or whether it's going to have some other problems. Whereas if I go ahead and use a dynamic drive overlay, I'm not going to know, because it just basically gives the hard drive a quick blank format, so it's a better indication of hardware stability. Okay, so this is going to keep on working away, and I'll be back in a minute. There you go. Some people like the noise of the hard drive clacking away. Okay, so I'm just using the Maxter MaxBlast software just to make sure that the hard drive has been detected by the controller card correctly. As you can see, drive defaults 10046, 16 heads, 63 sectors, and 539 megabytes. and then the cylinders, then it says currently 1046, 1663, 539. So it is reading it fine, so the hard drive is configured correctly, I hope. Yeah, so yeah, there's the Maxtor brand, and look, 7540AV. So this girl, she's still motoring. She's still spinning around, so that's good. So I wanted to try get a 1 gigabyte, but this will do the job. We have DOS running, so we're going to go ahead now and install the CrevLab sound card driver and see if SB Diagnose works. So I'm just going to install the driver. It's you know, we did it already, so I'm not going to go through it again. So I'm going to install the driver and then meet me back here for Sound Blaster diagnostics. I'll go on then. Okay, so yes, let's install the audio software. So this is the Sound Blaster 16 basic software, and you can just choose all the defaults, leave them as they are. There's no point in changing them. You can if you want, of course. That's fine, yeah. Okay, so no Microsoft Windows path. We haven't installed Windows yet anyway. So, oh, look at that. What I was going to say to you, when we install Windows, we might have to run this again, but we're just going to see if it actually works first, and then we worry about you know, installing the software. So there you are there now, see? So we have our base I/O 220, MIDI port 330, our interrupt at 5, our low DMA at 1, our high DMA at 5, and voila, our Sound Blaster 16 will work this time. So now I'll plug the cable in.
8-bit testing. 8-bit testing. 8-bit testing. 16-bit testing. 16-bit testing. 16-bit testing.
And we just try the MIDI. Okay, that's working. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go back into the BIOS. We're going to... No, I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do is just basically plug in the CD-ROM drive to the same cable as the hard drive, and it should work straight away. And what we do is we install the MSCDEX driver from Samsung, and hopefully then we'll have a CD-ROM drive, and we'll have software from Samsung. And it will install automatically the MSCDEX driver, the latest version, because there's different versions. And one of the most modern versions. This one here was actually from a DVD drive, so it was designed to support the older machines as well. So this is a great one to have. This is from Samsung, this one. So I'll install the MSCDEX driver, and of course the CD-ROM driver, SS CD-ROM from Samsung, which you also need. You can't just use the MSCDEX, you need both. But this has both of them on the disc, so voila! So what we're going to do now is let's install, restart the computer, and we should have a CD-ROM drive. Okay, so just to basically want to show you something. You've probably read the line by now, but what we suspected all along, that's our answer. Look at that. The keyboard controller clock line is high. It should be low. Now there's our fault. So there's something wrong with that keyboard controller chip for definite, and that's causing problems with the hard drive controller on board and that. We could take the keyboard controller chip out of the other motherboard. We keep it in reserve for the moment. We won't take it out for the moment. It might not cause any more trouble. Then again, it might. We know with Windows, because it's in Windows where we're going to have problems with the protected mode. But it's interesting that it's come up. Now this is Dell software, by the way, a Dell diagnostic disc that I have. So I decided to use that. This is actually from one of my 486 machines. So I basically ran that in the system just to see what error comes up. Everything's passing fine. I actually went into it looking for a keyboard controller test. I ran the keyboard controller test, and as you can see there, actually this computer is holding time. I don't know how. That's another mystery. It could be to do with that keyboard controller. I used this software originally, but it kept on locking and wouldn't let me run it. I tried to use another bit of software which went in, but I never actually used a PC check from Eurosoft. It went in, but I never actually ran any tests. I just basically went into it and out of it again. But anyway, that ran, but the microscope one wouldn't run. And what else was I going to say? Hold on a second. Yes, the other thing that I noticed is that I have the system battery taken out. I'm actually going to show it to you. There it is. System battery, it's dead, it's flat, it's dead. Today is actually the 19th of February, not the 17th. So just, I don't know whether you can see that on the watch there or not, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, it is the 19th, trust me. Or maybe you can do it on the phone, hold on, just to show it to you. So there's a few, right, so here's the, it's like a ransom note here, look, you ready, whoop, right? 1548, it comes off as soon as you put it up, look. Yep, there you go. Right? Okay, so you'll notice that the time is wrong up the top as well, right? This has been counting on 2 hours. So for some reason it's managing to remember the BIOS information because there's a fault on that keyboard controller chip. I don't know how. Maybe there's some battery power in there. It's become some sort of capacitor instead of or something. I don't actually know. But when I ran the test, this is what came up. So that keyboard controller chip is faulty, and it was my first suspicion. But I decided rather than trying to pull that chip out of there and ruin the other motherboard, I basically go ahead and put that hard drive controller card in there. I'm going to leave that hard drive controller card in there anyway because it supports these discs off the bat without having to go into that BIOS, which is very unwieldy, and start setting stuff up. So we leave it as it is for the moment, but we have a spare keyboard chip, but I don't really want to, you know, break that other motherboard. We wait until this one dies fully and then we go ahead and change it. But yeah, interesting. So there you go. How's that now? Here's one of the graphics test modes in that demo in that diagnostics disc, and as you can see, it's painfully slow. I'd imagine it'd be even slower if there wasn't a maths coprocessor to do some of these calculations here. But yeah, that's slow. It's actually interesting to see it building up line by line. It's like a thatch being created. I like it. Right here now.